Today, we are wrapping up my reading for the month of September, and my goal is to make this a low editing video. So, we're going to proceed with the knowledge that, I don't know, I might be a little less polished than normal, maybe is the outcome here. Also, this is my maybe she's born with it, maybe it's clinical depression shirt. I love this. I got it, and once I received it, I realized I don't really have any place that I can wear a mesh shirt on the reg, so I'm making occasions to wear it, and that occasion includes right now. September reading, I didn't read as much. I read, I think either the same amount in terms of number of books or a little lower, but I read way fewer pages because a lot of the things I was reading were like sci-fi romance novellas. So yeah, I definitely did not get a ton of reading done, but I feel like I had some real hits this month. So that is exciting. So let's dive in to my new format, and I will start by showing you all of the books that I read. You can see that there are 19 of them. I read I just got my notification that Twitter/X has finished preparing my data archive, so I can officially delete that account. If you don't know some of the things happening with Twitter, well, I just finished recording a podcast with Jess about it, but I definitely encourage you to go look and see what they're doing with some of their privacy stuff, and yeah, you can make your own decisions, but I would just flag for you that that is something you should look into. See what they've got going on, or what at least they are rumored to be in discussions to do. Okay, so anyway, sorry. So these are the 19 books that I read. So I read a total of 5,184 pages. Average book length was 273. Like I said, a big step down. I think last month it was in like the 330s. Average amount of time a book had been on my TBR was half a year, and the average age of book was 1.5 years old. And, that's actually not the average cost. I forgot to update that. So the average cost is whatever you guys are looking at right now. My most read genre this month was speculative romance. Like I said, I was reading a lot of novellas that were sort of like comfort, palate cleansing kind of reads. And then an equal amount of sci-fi fantasy and a little bit of mystery. Yeah, nice little melange of genres here. My average rating was 3.37, though if I were to include the DNFs that I did not include in this total, it would, I think, drop to like 3.1. So I'm still not having the kind of reading months I had at the beginning of the year, but I did have 2 4.5 stars this month, which was really exciting. And I definitely have things I enjoyed this month. So my impression of the month is that it was better than I think it is by the numbers. A third of the books I read a third of the books I read I did not own. 2/3 I did. You can see where books came from, a pretty even spread. And then, yes, okay, now we'll transition into like arcs, blogs, projects. So I read 5 arcs. And the arc I liked best, probably a toss-up between System Collapse and the death I gave him. So maybe we can start with the death I gave him since I have that in physical copy. So this I featured in my vlogging project, which we'll talk more about here in a minute, where I was doing are these really retellings? Because this is pitched as a queer locked room mystery retelling of Hamlet. And I think all of those buzzwords, I see where they come from. I don't think it's like completely out of pocket that those are the ways that this is getting described. I do think if you're looking, I guess it's unconventional. There's a lot going on in this book. It does hit, though, all of those buzzwords. Like, I don't think that those are just incorrect. I don't know that is totally the vibe of this book. I think it definitely feels a little bit more kind of like machination-y. There's a lot of espionage and behind the scenes intrigue, which if you think of Hamlet, I guess that does make some sense. I think some of the incorporation of the elements from the original source material were really cool in this. So yeah, it's a debut, so therefore I definitely felt like it was not as perfectly crafted as I could imagine it being. Like I could tell this was a debut. But I think there were a lot of cool ideas in here. I think that this was interesting. It felt, like fresh and different and enjoyable, and like the author had a perspective. So I appreciate that. So yeah, I would say this was probably my favorite of my advanced reader copies. And that is already out, so you guys can read that. System Collapse by Martha Wells. I think the superlative I gave to this one, I gave it 4 stars. And I'm going to tell you the things I like about it, but I do have to say this was the book where I thought, am I falling out of love with Murderbot? I know. I think it's just that I think Murderbot works better in episodic novellas. I'm not sure that I'm loving having a character journey for Murderbot fully, which is kind of a weird thing to say. But yeah, I guess I just am not necessarily as into that side of things. That said, I thought that this was, if you want some character progression for Murderbot, I feel like this is one that we got a lot of that in. There's not a lot I can say about this because it picks up literally right at the end of Network Effect. So if you are gonna read System Collapse, I would highly encourage you to go back and reread Network Effect, or at least do like a skim. I went back when I realized that's what was happening, I went back and like read some plot synopses to refresh myself on everything that happened with Network Effect. So really, even though this is, I think, this 8th book, I can't remember what number this is. Actually, I think it and Fugitive Telemetry, the last novella, in terms of the reading order, probably should get swapped, because this feels like the back half of the same story for Network Effect. So because of that, I can't tell you a lot about this, other than I think that this had a lot to say about like processing emotion and processing trauma, which is not something that Murderbot has been doing much of. So I think that was a fresh take. And I just think maybe I'm getting to the point where I've had enough Murderbot. Like my Murderbot cup, I think, runneth over, and maybe I've had enough. I don't know. This is the one that made me rethink things. I also wonder if I've just read a lot of Martha Wells this year, because I also read 2 fantasy books from her. So maybe I've just had too much of her voice this year. So maybe I just need to take some time. But anyway, I know that's a dramatic turn of events. I did give this 4 stars. I did enjoy it, but it did make me question if maybe we're done. Okay, and then I'll talk about, I should have saved that for when I was talking about superlatives. So I'll save Game On for another superlative. The Cliff House by Chris Brookmeyer was fine. I gave it 3 stars. It bills itself like an isolated close circle mystery, and I guess technically it is, but that is not the vibe. Read the back of the cover of this one. It's, like girls' weekend for bachelorette party, and then someone goes missing. Things go from there at this like isolated whatever. So read the back of the store, the plot, read the plot synopsis is what I am trying to say. And then know in your mind that this is going to read a lot like an action thriller more than a mystery. And if you are okay with that, I think you will have a perfectly good time in this. I think this would be a good book to take with you when you're traveling, because it's the kind of book that you could sort of like pick up and put down pretty easy, because it's diverting but not captivating, if that makes sense. Like, it will entertain you, it will pass the time, but I don't think you're going to get like sucked into it. At least I didn't. So it was fine. And then Chaos Terminal. This is the 2nd book in Mur Lafferty's sci-fi mystery cozy series. And I think I don't know if I'm going to continue in the series. I think it's a really good version of what it is. I think I want it to be cozier than she is trying to make it. It is very character driven. And again, this is another one like System Collapse. I don't think that you should read this without having read the previous book, because I think you will be lost. So you definitely need to read the previous book first. If you like the previous book, it's a lot more of the same elements I would just say, how would I describe this? I would say that it's called Chaos Terminal, and I think the author is purposely making everything very chaotic. That created a vibe or an atmosphere in the book that felt very stressful to me reading it, which is not what I wanted, personally. And it's a purposeful authorial choice. It goes with the plot. Again, this is a sequel that is very dependent on its predecessor, so I don't want to get into too many specifics. But let's just say Mallory has a task, doesn't go well, and things are going kind of all over the place. So that's fine. I think that's what she meant to do. It's meant to be chaotic, but it was just too stressful for what I was looking for. So I gave this 3.5 stars. I gave the first one 3.5 stars. I think that if you're looking for something that is a sci-fi murder mystery-ish series with a lot of machinations to it, and that has a lot of characters, is very character-driven in some ways, but doesn't necessarily feel cozy, I think you could get into this and I would recommend it. I want this to be cozier than I think she's going for. So, with that being said, I don't know that I'm going to read more of these, but I do think it's a good series for what she's trying to do. So in that sense, I would recommend it. Okay, now let's open up our lovely little spreadsheet aroo, and we will talk about superlatives. Let's see, what's the over-under? I literally was about to say, what's the over-under on me finishing filming with this battery? And as I was about to say that, the empty battery icon came up. So the answer is I will not get through this without having to change the battery. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So challenges and projects. I should also mention this. I'm sorry. This is part of why you're getting a low edited version. So we're first let me do that. So my big vlogging project for this month was that retelling one. So that was The Death I Gave Him. I read So Many Beginnings, Sense and Second Degree Murder, and A Dowry of Blood for that, as well as Liar's Beach by Katie Cotugno. And then last month I read What Moves the Dead. So if you want to hear all of my thoughts about those books, go check that video out. I think it turned out pretty well. I made some good progress in reading Roberts this month, and I'm going to talk about the 3 books that I made progress with in the superlative section. And then I read the newest entry in the Rizdiverse series, which was a short story getting reprinted as a standalone for the first time. It's literally like 50 pages long, so it doesn't have a lot to it, but it is female-female, which we haven't seen before, I don't think. And I thought it was really cute. It was lovely. Nice little amuse-bouche of Rizda. So thank you, Ruby Dixon. And then I started a new series, which is something of the White Rat. I forget, but it's a T. Kingfisher series, and we'll talk more about it here in a minute. Let me change the battery, and then we'll get into superlatives. Okay. What's particularly annoying is I literally changed the battery before I sat down, but apparently I picked a battery I had not fully charged. Love that for me. Okay, so moving in to superlatives. We already talked about system collapse as am I falling out of love with a favorite series. That was its superlative or its notable item. Alien Reject by Ursa Dax. So this is a sci-fi romance series that has been recommended to me by a couple of you guys as, hey, I know you love Ice Planet Barbarians. It seems like she's trying to do something pretty similar in this series. You should check it out. I read and liked the first one and thought, okay, well, I'll, kind of just keep going, when I'm in the mood from here on. And when I got to Alien Reject, which is number 4, I officially have decided it's one. I don't know if I'll read every book in it, which is why I'm not adding it to my series in progress list, because I'm still not convinced of that. But I am definitely gonna go read a lot more of them. I'm hooked. I am into the characters and their dynamic. It is a very similar setup to Ice Planet Barbarians, except sort of opposite. So just in terms of the environment, because it's a desert planet rather than an ice planet. And the alien men, they do have interesting junk situation happening, but they are kangaroo-esque alien men versus blue whatever the Mesaka technically are. So yeah, anyway, in that sense, it's sort of like opposite environments, but they're, you know, these human women have been abducted because they're sort of like specialties in fields, but are very alone in the world. So the government thinks nobody will notice that they're gone. And they're supposed to come to study this like resource that this planet has because the government thinks we could use it for the energy crisis, I think. Anyway, they accidentally crash land. The whole mission goes to shit. The like official people in charge are killed. And these women are going to be the fated mates of all these kangaroo alien men. It's fun and I'm into it and I'm going to keep going with it. It's not as good as Ice Planet Barbarians. I think that the writing is not quite as good. But it's fun. So that is a delightful surprise. Oh yeah. Okay. And then Game On by Sarisia Glass. I gave this 3 stars and this is probably my biggest disappointment, and it gets the superlative of not as good as the first one. Because I really, really enjoyed The Love Con by Sarisia Glass. I feel like it was really undersung the year it came out. I have recommended it to a lot of people. It hits that sort of spoiler alert kind of demographic in terms of it's nerdy, and it's one where there's a friends to lovers, and the dude has been like pining for the main character, for the girl, for a really long time, but they're friends and he's never like found the right moment, and then he finds the right moment. And it has fake dating. It's so great. The Love Con is great. And Game On, I just felt like the writing was crunchy. Like it was not good. And I'm so sad because I really liked The Love Con. So I know it's, you know, not like the author is a debut author or can't, like, I know she can do better. And I just thought the writing was really tough. The pacing was really tough. I gave it 3 stars because I did like the 2 main characters. I ultimately mostly liked where the story went. It's a lot about gaming, sort of like representation in gaming. One of our main characters owns a gaming company. The other one is a woman who does reviews, specifically from like a Black woman gamer perspective. And he ends up hiring her to like do some consulting. Anyway, the plot makes sense to me. The characters were really nice. They're both, you know, whatever. But it was not as good as the first one. And I was really disappointed because I was expecting that it was going to be one I love. But alas, I didn't. So I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. I wouldn't like steer people away from it, but maybe like manage your expectations. A la Gabby Hanna. Okay. And then I think we're to least favorite, least recommended, most favorite, most recommended. So least recommended, I'm gonna say Liar's Beach by Katie Cotugno. I did end up giving this 3 stars because, yeah, I think it's fine. But it's supposed to be an Agatha Christie retelling, so you guys know I'm probably gonna have some high standards and thoughts about that. And then I just thought the dialogue was really cringe. It's YA, and it really read like an adult trying to write the way the kids talk. And I'm not one of the kids, but I'm pretty sure they don't talk that way. So, I don't know. This, probably my first and last Katie Cotugno. I really did not get on with the writing. The mystery was fine. It was fine. But, yeah, this was definitely the one I would least recommend to people because I think there's a lot better YA mystery thriller out there, so I would not recommend you start with this. Most recommend, I'm gonna say the Clockwork Boys and the Wonder Engine. So I gave Clockwork Boys 4.5 stars. I gave Wonder Engine 4 stars. This is the beginning of that T. Kingfisher series. Who is surprised that Mara is obsessed with the T. Kingfisher series? No one. So I will tell you off the bat, this is basically one book. It's broken up into 2, and the reason that I gave the Wonder Engine less was because I thought the pacing was off. The first one, it's a really slow ramp, but you know, you're at the beginning of a quest. I kind of could go with that. I feel like if it had been consolidated into one book and the pacing evened out accordingly, I probably would have given this a 5-star if that had happened. But with that being said, I think that this could be, the reason I most recommend this, if you are intrigued by somebody like a Joe Abercrombie, but you're not sure you're ready to fully commit to like how cynical and dark that perspective is. I think that this is like a step in that direction, but because there is a love story that is there, but not, I wouldn't call this a fantasy romance, even though it has a strong romantic element. I would call it a fantasy with a strong romantic element, and I think that element somewhat, you know, cuts through the darkness of what's actually really going on. It's we have to, like, this ragtag group of folks have to get together to try to save the world kind of story. All the three main adventurers all are about to be killed for various crimes, and if they can successfully go disarm these sort of steampunky golem type things that the opposing army who's closing into the city, if they can go destroy those and like save everyone, then their death sentence will be lifted. So there's a paladin who's like disgraced, there's a forger, there's an assassin, and then they also have this like very prissy scholar guy who has not seen a woman since he was like 3 and is horrified that the leader of this mission is a woman. And I just love the character dynamics. There's a lot of darkness in there's a lot of death. You know, there's a plague that's also around. These are some morally gray characters, but not as morally gray as you get in something like a Joe Abercrombie. So, and it's also the T. Kingfisher writing. So I would describe this as very similar to Nettle and Bone, but without the sort of fairy tale vibe, and insert instead a questing vibe from the beginning. I just really loved it. I love Nettle and Bone, so it's not surprising that I love this, and this is what I would most recommend to people. Now, I will say, if I were still a fan fiction writer, I would 100% be writing fan fiction about Caliban and what is her name? Slate, that's her name. Because it has just enough of the romance, and like where it leaves off, I'm like, oh, this is so fan fictionable. So I really enjoyed that element. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought this was great. I cannot wait to read the other books in this series. There's a standalone-ish one called Swordheart, and then there's a trilogy that all have Paladin in the title. This also has some themes to do with religion that I really liked. Anyway, love this. Highly recommend. Yes. Okay. And then least favorite and most favorite. This is where we get back to Nora Roberts. So, because my least favorite and my most favorite books were both by her. So I finally attempted to continue the Year One, or the Chronicle of the One trilogy from Nora Roberts. I did like the first one. Probably the best I've liked any Paranora. If I'm being honest, I probably liked it at a 3, but because I was just so delighted to be enjoying a Paranora, I gave it a 3.5. The problem with the next book, which is called Of Blood and Bone, this is that one that was that controversy because of Children of Blood. Remember that Twitter drama? Love it. The problem with Of Blood and Bone is that it picks up with the kid of somebody, like a couple in the first book. And so we completely shift away from everything I was invested in, and I have to get reinvested in this new character, and like time is passing in this apocalypse, and I just couldn't. I couldn't get into the new timeline. I wasn't into it, and I already struggle with a Paranora, and I just really was honest with myself of like, do I want to keep going with this? And the answer was no. So this is the one DNF I counted because I actually made like very meaningful progress on it, but I realized I didn't want to read it anymore, and I also therefore DNF'd the finale of that trilogy. So technically that's 2 books off of my reading Roberts TBR, and I'm really disappointed, but it was my least favorite, and it's just, I struggle with that as a tone from her. But a 4.5 stars, and my most favorite book was the one I just finished at the very end of the month, which was Payback in Death. And I loved this. This was just so good. It's what I really like in an in-death book, which is much more weighted towards the mystery than the personal, but we do get those meaningful personal moments that, you know, we get those cozy community vibes from Eve and Rourke and all of the people around them. They start off on a vacation, and that I thought was a nice way to like kind of introduce some of the family stuff when they're visiting them in Ireland. We get some good stuff with the new house that Mavis, Peabody, and all of them are going to be moving into. And then we get a corruption in the force type plot, which is very reminiscent of Treachery in Death, which is my all-time favorite in Death book. So we got a lot of things in this that go to what I like best in an in Death book. It's one of my favorites in the series, I would say. The fact that this is book 57, and that's how I feel about it, I think is pretty amazing. And every time I think, maybe I'm getting a little tired of these books, I'll get one like this and I'm like, no. When they're done to my specifications, I'm still obsessed with these books. They're so cozy. It's book 57, so don't start with this one, but it's so good. And if you love the series, I think you'll like this one. At least I did. That was my most favorite, but I can't make it my most recommended because it is book 57. So with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed a low edited video so that I could get it up quickly for you. Let me know what you thought about any of the books that we talked about here today. Let me know how your reading went in the month of September. Welcome to October spooky season. So exciting. I have been working on a lot of harder to edit or longer projects that I'm excited for you guys to hopefully start to see in October. That's my plan. But I love this time of year. I'm hopeful that it's actually going to be lovely to be outside again soon. Fall ready for you. So yeah, I think that will do it for me though for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you are having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!